But it's of some significance that this document, the Port Huron Statement, reverberates today. For instance, in the Occupy Wall Street movement of last September, the first principle, one of the few things that they could agree on, was that participatory democracy was their transcendent principle, and that was a concept that was first announced in the Port Huron Statement, and it was transmitted by a philosophy professor that we knew in Ann Arbor, and before him, the American philosopher John Dewey. Well, I think students are facing issues that are much tougher than we faced. The unemployment picture is very tough. The global warming threat is even more unmanageable than the nuclear war threat that we faced in the Cuban Missile Crisis. On the other hand, there's more diversity. I think there's more familiarity with viewpoints than there was long ago. There's maybe some cynicism because the students have only seen things get worse. But I'm confident that if you're young and you've got your whole future ahead of you, you're not just going to sit around like a stone and wait. You're going to be called to action if somebody proposes a specific plan. Who's going to do it? And if nobody does, I think students will, in their own way, in their own time, more or less rapidly rise to the occasion. They always have, and I don't see why not. Participatory democracy does not come from a theory. It comes from an experience of two things. One, an affected group of people like yourselves is really pained and feels morally insulted by some policy, and you have a concrete grievance. It could be, we want to vote. It could be that simple. And the second thing is that the representative institutions, or all the institutions, the banks you count on, the religious institutions, the universities, all the institutions have failed, in your judgment, from your feelings, to deliver on what you need to live a decent life, and you can't take it anymore. It comes a breaking point where you won't settle and you have to do something. At that point, no theory is necessary. We've seen it over and over, that people then rise up in small gatherings in their neighborhoods and assemblies. They begin to discuss, they come to a conclusion, this is what we want. They map out the decision-making territory that they have to navigate. They try to figure out pressure points. They usually go outside of the institutions that have failed them. They start with demonstrations, or they petition, or they have press conferences to try to shame some public official. That's all that is meant, really, by participatory democracy. It can be small scale. It can be the American Revolution, which would not have happened without participatory democracy. So I think sometimes when we look back, whether it's the 60s or the American Revolution, it's overwhelming, and you have this false idea that everyone was at the barricades, everybody was up in arms, everybody was in action, in motion, and it's not true. It's a tide. There's a high tide and a low tide, and there are waves, and sometimes small groups touch something off that is unexpected, and then you're in luck. You have a social movement for a time, and if you're strong enough, you'll get some of your grievances met. So I wouldn't be overshadowed by false pictures of the past. I do think that what you do in your life, like in Voltaire, cultivate your own garden, is very important. There's any number of Michigan environmental organizations that one might join. Reading, not just thinking that you have to study only what's required, but look for some great books, some great novels to stretch your mind, and look for friends who have common grievances. And and realize that if you take small actions, it's usually in the context of much bigger actions.